Hello and welcome to We Random, episode 34, recording on April 9th, 2021. Hey B, we are a week into the new baseball season. The good news is for our Milwaukee Brewers, I haven't jumped off a bridge yet. The bad news is pretty much everything else. We're going to talk about that and a little bit more coming up.
Almost Qualified Productions. Your dose of semi-coherent babbling.
Welcome to We Random, episode 34. I'm Brian. That's Christopher. Say hello to those people, Christopher.
Hello, people.
So the Brewers did take 2 of 3 from everyone's favorite, the Chicago Cubs. So,
you know what they say
got that
about
going for
you know
us.
what they say about the sunshine and a dog's ass and all that.
What, they win a World Series every 100 years?
Well, I was talking about the other dog's ass, but that works too.
All right, everybody. So we are here for you today with another great episode of We Random. Today, we have our Wheel of Doom to give us some selected topics that we will bring our opinions on to you. We will also finish the Snaklet 8 bracket. We have our final 4 competitors, and we will have a very heated discussion about which one of these carb-loaded things that Christopher can no longer have would we choose as number 1.
That's fair.
But before we get to that, we need to get to our wheel of topics. So, Christopher, what do you say we get to that? Do you have any other thoughts, feelings, or words for the people?
I think the only thing I would call out is I want to make sure that everyone notices our new guest in the corner. I think we're going to shake that up each week. And this week we got one of the best dancers to ever grace the small screen.
Is it me? Oh, you said small screen, so
you're a movie star. You're big screen. Come on. I'm spinning the wheel.
All right.
We're going to start with something pretty local here, B, which is, shocking considering we random. MPS. What is MPS and why are we talking about them?
So we are talking about Milwaukee Public Schools because they are getting federal aid, but not everyone is happy about this.
Can't give Milwaukee money.
So Wisconsin is set to receive more than $2 billion in federal aid for school districts, with $797 million of that, more than a third of the money, going to Milwaukee Public Schools. That number equates to about $11,000 per student. The funds were allocated based on a federal formula that takes into account how many low-income students are part of a district. Some lawmakers, I'll let you decide which side of the political spectrum that they are on, question the allocation differences, as some districts continued in-person schooling while others did not. Of the 6 largest districts in Wisconsin, Milwaukee will receive the most funding. Madison schools will receive $42.5 million, which is about $1,600 per student. Kenosha and Green Bay, with about the same size districts and allocations, will get $72.5 million, which is about $3,800 per student. Racine will receive $85 million, which is about $5,000 a student. And Appleton gets $15 million, which is about $1,000 per student. So the thing about this is a lot of people were kind of upset and angry and frustrated that, MPS is getting, $11,000 per student, but my district over here that's been open the whole time is getting chump changed. Why is that? So, Christopher, I have some thoughts about this, but I want to take it to you first. Do you want to give your thoughts or do you want me to just open up on this?
Nah, do it, B. I want to hear you go off.
I don't know that I'm going to go off. It's still early. This is not a beer sponsored podcast, so I'm still pretty reserved today. But the thing about this is this brings together lots of things that get people very angry. Number one, people always get angry when it comes to their children. So they always want their children to have the most, the best, the EST of whatever. Again, see, WrestleMania weekend, bringing it all together. But they want their children to have the best. So if MPS children are getting $1,000 or $11,000 per student, they want their kid in Slinger or McGuanago or wherever to be getting $11,000 per student, even though out there those school districts have lots of money. They have buildings that were built within the last 50 years. They have textbooks that were released in the last 10 years. They have all of these things that these kids in these buildings in Milwaukee don't. So when Milwaukee is getting this money, hopefully Milwaukee can use this money to do things like update their curriculum with books and things that can help students not only now in this COVID time, but going forward to kind of bridge some of that education gap. Because I think it's really important that they're using these formulas to think about low income, because obviously, we've talked a lot about income, and we've talked a lot about just because you are this type of person, it doesn't mean that you've had an easy life, but it may mean that the color of your skin or anything like that didn't contribute to things being harder for you. And some of that also applies to low income individuals, right? Because if you're a low income individual, you might not be able to afford the same conveniences that somebody who is not low income can afford when it comes to schooling, whether that be materials, tutoring, computers, all of this stuff. So I really think it's important that MPS does get this funding, and hopefully they use it in a way to help everybody.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm trying to do some quick searching here because I wasn't, prepared ahead of time. But I was very curious on how good the schools in Milwaukee rank compared to others. And I found a really quick article here, and this is a couple of years old, but MPS had 39 failing schools and 5 top performers. So I don't know. Maybe they could use the money. That's what I'm thinking. Because in the end, this isn't about me and mine, even though that's what a lot of people, that's what most people are going to say, right? I want to make sure that, if that kid down the street is getting money, then I want my kid to get money. But in the end, the idea is that we want everybody to have an equal opportunity. And God knows that's not the case right now, right? We have a system where, education and the funding for education is funded by property taxes, right? So if you live in that posh neighborhood where everybody's got a $500,000 house, your kid's flying high. He's got the, get a new iPad every year when you go to school. But if you're living in an area that's not as well off, you're living in an area where people are living under, maybe living in the poverty level. Now all of a sudden your school doesn't have the funding that it needs, and now you've got kids who, they can't blow their nose at school because there's no fucking Kleenex there or something, right? So yeah, the idea isn't that we want to take away from that first group, right? It's not that we don't want that first group to have everything they need to be successful. But we want that second group to have some of that shit too, because otherwise what we're looking at is one group is definitely getting pushed up and they're getting everything they need and a hell of a lot more to be successful. And then we've got another group that is we're just basically setting them up for failure, right? And that's not okay. We need to get everybody up above whatever that standard level is. And right now, that's certainly not the case. Now, does the way that this has been allocated make sense? I don't know. I'm not an expert on, school funding. I'm not an expert on the school rankings and all of that. But just anecdotally, I think it makes a whole lot more sense that Milwaukee gets a lot more money than fucking Appleton does.
Right. Well, and thinking about it from the perspective of people saying, oh, well, the schools that were open all year should be getting more money. Like, that doesn't tell me anything. That's this whole agenda that people are pushing, that we need to get back. We need to do this. We need to do that. Step back and think about how that's even possible. Because if you were a school district that was able to stay open, you likely needed to purchase lots of PPE. You likely needed to provide lots of space accommodations. You likely needed to do a lot of these things that these Milwaukee public schools probably couldn't do because their physical infrastructure would not allow it. So again, that's a point of privilege where you as a school district had the monetary resources and the space resources and the opportunities to do these things to be open. As Chris Rock used to say, what do you want, a cookie? Great. I'm happy for you.
Well, and I know that you had mentioned that we weren't going to call out the side of the aisle that had a little bit of an issue with this. But I think that it's probably likely to say that that specific individual group probably doesn't care as much about the people who are going to school in Milwaukee as they do the people who are going to school, say, in Madison or, you know, one of the ritzy fitsy fucking suburbs of Milwaukee, right? They certainly care a lot more. And I'm sure it has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that one of them has a little bit more melanin in their skin. I'm sure that's completely coincidental, but I mean, that's what a lot of it is, right? And let's be honest, who are the people that were pushing to keep everything open and open it quicker and sooner? There's a very interesting correlation happening here, B. That's all I'm saying.
No, there isn't. We might get into this a little bit more with one of the other topics on the wheel, so let's not spoil that.
All right. Do we want to spin again then?
Let's spin again.
We're spinning again. Sorry that you had to hear that.
I mean, you didn't even turn on sing mode for us.
That's true. I could.
I'm spinning again. Oh, God.
That's even worse. Okay. So B, there's an article out there, and this is an interesting article. This is something that I have been making my voice very much heard over the course of the last year or so. But this article is talking about working remote or working in an office, and specifically, the headline of it is a little bit catchy. So I'm not even going to spoil it. I'm going to let you lay it out there for everyone.
All right. So a survey of 1,000 work from home employees conducted by staffing firm Robert Half found that 34% of respondents said they would rather quit their job than return to a full-time office.
Dang.
When asked about preferences for returning to the office, 49% of respondents said they would prefer a hybrid work arrangement, while 26% said that they want to remain fully remote, and 25% of respondents said they would like to return full-time to the office. So obviously we know that that doesn't necessarily add up. Actually, that does add up to 100%. So look at me. But, you know, that it's pretty split, right? Because you have the big gap of people that say, hey, I want a little bit of both. And then there's some people like, nope, I really want to be at home. And there's other people like, nope, I want to be in the office. But what I really liked about this article is that the survey provided some insights into what employers can do to ease the transition back to any type of in-person work for employees. They asked the surveyed individuals about what they've enjoyed and what they haven't enjoyed about working from home. And employees mentioned that they've grown fond of being able to set their own hours. They've grown fond of the relaxed dress code, having a highly personalized workspace. And this is one that I think is going to surprise some people. They've enjoyed having a distraction-free environment where they do not need to make chit-chat with coworkers.
Right?
So I know I took the first topic, so I'm just gonna be quiet and let you go for a minute. What do you got, Christopher?
So we've already got a couple people in the chat that are commenting. Gamer says he's in the 49%. No, wait. Oh yeah, 49% that want more of a hybrid. I want more work from home, but don't want a full work from home. Wiggs said that he enjoys 100% work from home, but he's been doing that for quite a few years. Emily said she wants flexibility. This is a very, very personal thing for a lot of people, right? There's a lot of reasons why one person would want something, some person would want another. People who have young kids at home, right? I mean, they could go both ways too, right? Because there's some of them that's like, hey, if I get to stay home, I don't have to worry about childcare, which saves me money, and I'm already struggling. But there's other people that say, dude, get me the hell out of this house because I can't concentrate with my kids running around screaming, right? So that can go both ways. I think there's a lot of positives and negatives to both sides. And I think, again, it's very, very personal. I think the right answer is you need to be flexible as a company. That's the right answer. Be flexible. Listen to people and what they have to say. And be flexible with your work arrangements. I mean, let's be honest. If you are hiring people that you feel like you have to police every second of the workday to make sure they get their work done, you are very fucking bad at hiring people to your company. And what kind of fucking culture do you have that you feel you have to spy on people all the time to make sure they do their work? I mean, that's a serious problem. Now, the problem is the businesses aren't going to see it that way, right? They're not going to listen to that. They're just going to say, well, we just want to blah, 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 whatever. I agree with the part about chit chat and being distraction free, right? Like, I'm a person where if I'm in the office, I probably have 10 visitors to my desk every single day, minimum. And every single one of those is 10 minutes or something. So what is it, like 2 hours out of my day I'm losing just chatting with somebody? Now, some of that is legitimately work related. Hey, I just want to run something by you, whatever. But you can shoot me an IM. You can shoot me an email. I'm going to answer that. I get back to everybody pretty quickly, and you can get your answer that you need, right? I mean, I think there's a lot of that too. So yeah, I think the flexibility is the important part, but I think that it has to be flexible. And again, I'm coming from an employee perspective, right? I think it needs to be flexible for both parties. Like I never, ever, ever, ever want to go back to an office. I just don't want to do it. I have no interest in doing it. It's a pain in my ass. The way it is right now, I commute about an hour each freaking way to get to work, which is asinine. I have more free time that I can do the stuff that I need to do here. Like, yeah, do I miss parts of it? Do I miss being able to go for a walk with my coworkers and, walk down not even down the street, but swing over to Starbucks, which I can't drink anymore anyway, and grab something? Yeah, that's great. Do I love being able to walk over and have lunch with one of my coworkers? Yeah, that's great. All these things are fantastic, but do I miss that so much that I want to give up the fact that I can roll out of bed and, spend 5 minutes getting something to eat and then get ready and just log on and do my work? No. But here's the other thing that I think a lot of people, and I'm going to keep talking, B, sorry. Here's the other thing though, that is very impactful too, is that people don't understand work-life balance, period. But they sure as shit don't understand it when it comes to remote working. Like I get meetings as early as 7 o'clock and as late as 6 and 7 o'clock. Like your work, I mean, if you want to work 12 hours, that's fine, but I hope you're not expecting me to answer you at 7:30 o'clock in the freaking evening. I got other stuff going on. And I think people just like that boundary has disappeared. And all of a sudden the workday is now stretched to like a 12-hour workday. And I get it. Some people, maybe they need to take a half-hour break here or there, but I think it's because you kind of always have that always on feel. Like my laptop's right over there. I don't power it off. I restart it every now and then. It's just sitting there. I mean, I can grab that and start working at any point if I feel the need to. And so I think that it's very easy for people to get sucked into that, and the workday just never ends. And I think that's a serious problem.
I think that it's a very interesting topic, right? Because I think some of that is personal to each person. I also think some of that is culture specific. Like, for example, my employer, we are generally like a first shift-ish place, right? Now, there are people who work modified shifts. There are people who will answer emails as they're available. But I think in some ways it's really important to set whatever standard you're going to set, right? Because, for my job, like, could I do everything that I do remotely? Yes. Do I enjoy doing everything that I do remotely? Yes. In an ideal world where I got everything that I ever wanted in my life, would I like to be working from home forever? Yes. Is that something that's going to happen for me? No. And the reason for that is I serve, 500 people. And of those 500 people that I serve, probably 400 of them want to see my face in person. They want to shake my hand and make me miss their hand because I'm blind, right? But, like,
No more
these
shaking
are,
hands, B. You got to stop that shit.
Oh, I've had a vendetta against shaking hands long before the pandemic, but we don't need to talk about that right now. But, like, I think it's really important with the flexibility. And I think, some of the stuff that's going on in chat where, historical gamers talking about, oh, what about the FaceTime thing? Like, again, you can evaluate the efficiency of an employee in lots of different ways. It doesn't have to be someone that you see, someone that you're buddy with, someone that you pal around with. Like, there's lots of different ways to do these things, but it requires both the employee and the employer to be innovative. And there are some places that are really good at being innovative, and there are some places that are really bad at being innovative. And I think one of the things that the article said that I also feel like is interesting is that some employees are going to be asking their employer to cover transportation costs or to cover costs for childcare if they do ask them to come back, because those are costs that over this past 13 months people haven't necessarily had to pay. If they've been able to keep their children at home, that means that they're not spending 200, 300, 400, however many hundreds of dollars a week. if they're commuting like you for an hour each way every day, that means that you're not filling up your gas tank twice a week and
Yeah.
you're saving X number of dollars a month. And all of a sudden now you have to build that back into your budget if you go back to the office full time.
Yeah, there's a lot of those things. And I think the other thing too, Wiggum mentioned he's been working remote for years now. Like he's got all of this figured out, right? He knows this is what I need to do for, my work time. And this is what I do when I'm stepping away from work. And this is what I do to make sure I'm making dinner instead of doing X, Y, and Z and ordering garbage food all night. He's got that set up. And the rest of us that kind of got thrown into the work from home thing, like we all had to figure that out, right? We had to figure out like what does my schedule even look like? Like when before this happened, I had a regimented schedule. I know when I'm going to bed, I know when I wake up, I know how much time I have to get ready in the morning and when I have to leave, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Like I had everything figured out and now it all got blown up, right? So we're kind of scrambling to figure that out. And I would even say that to this point, I still don't exactly know how, I'm going to say exactly 73 times, I guess, but
Exactly.
I still don't know exactly what I want that to be, right? Like there's some structure, especially with the stream that I do all week long. I have to have a little bit of structure in there, but there's still things that I'm trying to work out. And that's part of the big change too, right? And that's just easy stuff. I mean, I'll be honest, I've got it easy. I don't have to worry about kids. I don't have to worry about school. I don't have to worry about school is in person, school is not in person, school is hybrid, school is whatever, right? I don't have to worry about parents. I don't have to worry about parents who are in a nursing home. I mean, I have parents, but they're not in a nursing home. I don't have to worry about that. And can I see them? Can I not see them? Do they get like, there's a lot of things that a lot of people are dealing with that is a hell of a lot worse than the few things that I need to deal with probably. But that's all part of it too. And again, that's why I think flexibility has to be the key. Like if you truly are a business that cares about your people, there has to be flexibility, because I think the thing is we're running into an environment where there's probably a lot more people who are interested in working remotely now than there were before, just because they've seen what it brings and they've seen the positives they've got. We also may have other people who are like, hey, you know what? I'd love to work remote more. That's like, fuck that. Send me to the goddamn office. These kids are going to drive me insane, right? It kind of goes both ways. But again, and I know I'm preaching, but it has to come down to flexibility. That's the most important thing. Is my company going to offer me that flexibility? I don't know. I hope so, but we'll see.
Right. Well, and I think that's the important part, is that there has to be that back and forth dialogue. Because for me, like one of the things that I love about it is like I look at my schedule every day. So typically I try to be on my computer by X time. But let's say I don't have a meeting at X time. So maybe I do my exercise bike in the morning, and then maybe I'm on my computer, I slide that back by 15 to 20 minutes. But then I can work 15 to 20 minutes later than I would stop. Like that to me is definitely a better trade-off than I'm going to sit in this office. I don't have this appointment. Now when I come home and I get home at 7 o'clock, I have to work out. I'm tired. I don't want to work out at 7 o'clock. But then somebody would say, oh, Brian, you should get up at 5 a.m. and do your exercise bike because you have to be up by 5:30 to get to work by 8:30, right? Like it just makes such a world of difference. The timing of transportation. And I think that's something that people need to really evaluate for themselves, because like you said, with kids, sometimes people are like, I need y'all out the house and I need to be, because so anyway, I think we've kind of started to go in a circle on this. So do you have any other thoughts?
This is something I am incredibly passionate about, if you haven't already figured that out. So I could talk about this for hours on end, but I think we pretty much beat it to death as far as this podcast is concerned.
All right, well, let's go to our next topic, where we are still podcasting from home.
We are going to talk about a kind of okay quarterback, Tom Brady. Why are we talking about this fucking guy?
We're talking about the plant man.
Is he a plant man?
He is a plant man.
Oh, okay.
All right. So Tom Brady is collaborating to launch an NFT platform called Autograph this spring. It will bring together some of the biggest names in sports, entertainment, fashion, and pop culture to work with creators to develop unique digital collectibles. In addition to offering NFTs, Autograph plans to have interactive offerings such as live auctions, physical product drops, and in-person experiences. Now, I don't think that they're going to have any Jesus or Satan shoes after what we talked about last week, but it might be interesting to see what those physical product drops are. So the TLDR of this is Tom Brady's getting into the NFT game, and I think this is going to be real interesting. This almost kind of smells a little bit to me like, do you know how some of the like card shops around here have like exclusive contracts with people where like, oh, you want to get a Christian Yelich autographed bat, like you can only go to Legends of the Field or whatever
Yeah.
place that he signed with? This is kind of what I'm thinking is starting to happen with this and like NFTs. Like if you want some type of Tom Brady memorabilia that isn't already out in the universe, you got to get it through them. And then he's going to sign Gronk to his label. And then if you want Gronk stuff, then you got to go through Autograph. And all of a sudden he's
Yeah.
going to have like Giselle Bundchen's whatever model stuff. She'll start selling her modeling gear like the New Day sells their ring gear. Like
Yeah.
all this stuff. So I don't know. That's what I think is coming. What are your thoughts on this?
No, I think you're right. I think that, and when I looked at this article, I was a little bit disappointed that there wasn't more to it. It was pretty, very, very brief. It was kind of like somebody wanted to get out there and say, hey, guess what? Tom Brady's doing this. And that was kind of the end of it. But let me pull up the article here really quick. Where's old Tom Brady? There he is. Because there was a list of people that are in on this with him, and it was a whole bunch of different entrepreneurial type people. And where did my...
Yeah, it's like the DraftKings guy. And
yeah, it's not scrolling, so the stupid page won't load, whatever this stupid website is. But yeah, there was a handful. There was like 30 different people that were involved in this, right? So I think that part of what this is a bunch of rich people who want to get in on NFTs because they feel that this is a way they can fleece people out of their money. Honestly, like I am intrigued as hell by NFTs, but obviously it's a bubble that's going to burst at some point, right? And these are just people who are trying to get in before it bursts, make their money, and then, you know, run off to the bank laughing. And if you can loop in Tom Brady, well, now you all of a sudden got, you know, a face to your company that people are going to jump at. I think that's what a lot of this is. I think the idea is kind of interesting. I think you're right. I think they're just, it's kind of like a, like talent agency, but that's not what I'm looking for. Like the sports agents kind of thing, right? An agency where they want to pull in all the big names people because they're going to make money off it. That's kind of what it feels like, right? And you're going to use Brady to pull in some of the big name athletes and all of that type of stuff. So, I mean, it's interesting. It's intriguing. I like NFTs as far as the idea of it. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it's kind of cool. I like what it can do, but there's no doubt that it is running wild right now. People are spending way too much money on these things. Like, is a fucking image of a cat with a rainbow, barfing a rainbow, whatever it is that worth $600,000? No. Is it ever going to be worth $600,000? Probably not. But you know what? People are getting crazy on this. And if you got that kind of money you want to throw away on that stuff, that's fine. But I think it's unlikely that stuff's ever going to be worth something. So I don't know. I get the feeling like this is just a quick cash grab that some people are going for.
What about some tattoo real estate on Gronk's chest? How about that? Is that worth something?
I think it's worth something because I would have him tattoo "I'm the biggest idiot on the planet" right on his fucking chest. That would be pretty awesome.
I mean, we talked last week about the tennis player who sold a part of her arm, so it's possible.
I mean, why not make money? And I think it makes sense depending on the cost on both sides, right? Like the person who bought that space, the skonzii logo on his chest, that's not a bad idea. The guy who bought that part on the woman's arm, right? Like she's an up and comer, right? So she might be the next Serena Williams is her name, right? Yeah. I should know her name. She's like the greatest tennis player ever. But like she could be the next Serena Williams for all we know, right? And now all of a sudden, this person who's the biggest face on the planet for tennis, now you've got your whatever, your logo on her arm or whatever the case may be. So, I mean, we don't know what this is going to become, right? It could become anything. It could become Bitcoin, which, you know, at some point is probably going to crash too. It could be the .com bubble. You know, who knows what it could be. So I think that the important thing is if you're looking personally to get invested, treat it like the stock market, right? Don't put anything in it that you can't just burn in the backyard, because that's essentially what you could very well be doing.
Yep. I mean, just don't download the Trezor app and you're fine. So
What is
that's
it?
what I
Oh
got.
yeah. Oh God, that poor fucking bastard. All right, I'm done with Tom Brady. We're out of here.
All
We should be
right.
talking about. We should wait a second. I'm gonna call an audible. We should talk about Aaron Rodgers on Jeopardy. Did you guys see the Aaron Rodgers on Jeopardy thing on Monday?
I have not watched a minute of that.
I haven't
although
either. I
did
just saw the
see-
clip. Because, like the champion, they had the last question or whatever for Final Jeopardy, and the guy writes down whose idea was it to kick that field goal. It was fucking amazing. And Rodgers says, I don't know. And that's a very good question, but it's not the right question for this answer, so you're wrong. But yeah, it was fucking hilarious. All right, anyway, we're going to move from Aaron Rodgers to the Milwaukee Brewers. All right. I haven't gotten too pissed yet today, B. Let's do it.
So instead of having Carlton Banks in that corner, we need the gif of Will Smith standing in the middle of that living room where there's no furniture left. And then we need to Photoshop Manny Pina's head onto Will Smith, because I feel like that's how Manny Pina feels right now, with Orlando Arcia being gone, with Jesus Aguilar being gone, with Hernan Perez being gone, with Jonathan VR being gone. All of his boys are gone.
Pretty much,
And
yeah.
that is because the Milwaukee Brewers traded Orlando Arcia for two pitchers, Patrick Weigel and Chad Sabatka.
Who?
They also made it through the first week of the season with a record of 3-4, although two of those three wins did come against your Chicago Cubs. So this week has been an interesting week for the Brewers. Colton Wong apparently has tweaked an oblique, and like Lorenzo Cain's got a sore oblique, and there's just a lot of weird stuff going on. Corbin Burns has like 47 strikeouts and 2 losses because they don't score runs for him. So, what are your thoughts on the team so far? Where are you at?
Well, if my math is correct, and it very well may not be, a 3-4 record over the course of the season equates to about 69 wins, which is even worse than I thought they were going to be. I was giving them credit for 75. So I'm just saying, like, they're even worse than I expected. Well, this is a team we expected, right? They've got two pitchers who are any good. They got a bunch of guys who are going to get beat up. They're banking on Craig Counsell's ability to put the right guy in the lineup at the right time to do the right thing. And yeah, he's better at that than probably any other manager in the league. But, at some point, you're just dealing with diminishing returns, right? I mean, it was one thing when you're playing with players who are going to hit, 270, 280. You have a much better chance of throwing them in at the right time. Now you're dealing with a bunch of guys hitting 220, which is a big difference in baseball, right? That's 50, 60% is a big fucking difference. So I don't expect them to be super successful. I mean, Narvaez is hitting out of his fucking mind. That Surshik are not going to last, right? Yelich has been trash. He's starting to heat up a little bit, but he's basically been trash. That's probably not going to continue. Keston Hiura doesn't know how to hit a baseball anymore. So I mean, they're just garbage, right? They're just garbage. And yeah, I agree with you, Wiggum. It's very early to judge things, but this is the team that we expect. This is the team we expect.
So before you take my line, I'm gonna go all Dennis Green on you. They are who we thought they were.
For sure.
And I say that because I expected this team to be a team where they're trying to win every single game 3-2. They weren't trying to be an offensive juggernaut. They're trying to be a strong defensive team with lots of pitching options where they can just like trot random dudes out there and have a 47-man, taxi squad of relievers and other people that they can call in and call out and bring up and send down. And, they are who we thought they were. Like, you've seen them be in a bunch of really close games. They've gotten a lot of good pitching. Their offense just hasn't come through. And in a couple of the games that they won, their offense came through. They hit a couple of home runs and then they made it work and things like that. So I think this is what we're going to see a lot of. And obviously it's going to hurt if Wong is out for a little while and if Cain's out for a little while, but I think this is just kind of who they are. And I'm going to try not to get into a fight with Historical Gamer because I'm tired of all the internet stat boys telling me how terrible Orlando Arcia is when I've seen nothing out of Luis Urias to say that he's any better. Right?
He's 5 years. He's 5 years younger or something. That's the reason you keep him over Arcia.
Oh, for sure, 100%. Like, I get the move, but I'm tired of people just like shoveling dirt on Orlando Arcia. Orlando Arcia signed with the Brewers when he was 16. He was with that team for 10 years. He gave them the best 10 years that he could. Was he the guy that we all thought he would be like when he came up? Probably not. Is he a fine major leaguer? Sure he is. I mean,
he's a good bench guy. Like he shouldn't be starting, but he's an all right bench guy. He'll get a hit every now and then. He's decent in the field. He can play multiple positions. I mean, yeah.
Like he's an energy guy, right? Like he's one of those guys that shows up like in the moment. And obviously somebody on Twitter is going to be like, look, he hit 217 in late and close and blah, 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 blah. He's bad. He's bad. He's bad. Look, let people enjoy their sports. If I'm going to let you enjoy the fact that you want to look in a spreadsheet and tell me that Orlando Arcia is bad, let me enjoy watching Orlando Arcia, right? Like, I feel like that's the thing that we have to do here. So it's going to be interesting because it's his job now. He is the shortstop. He is going to have to run this, and then they're going to have to run all of these other not Hernan Perez guys out there, whether it's Daniel Robertson or the Matthias guy or the 17 other dudes with minor league options that they signed this winter, right? So again, they are who we thought they were. Like, this is what this team is built to do. And we're going to see how this goes. Like, it's interesting because now they're trying to get Vogelbach some playing time at first base. And if Wong is out, then Hero might go back to second. And then Vogelbach is starting at first. And then it's going to be interesting. We're getting wild in here.
Yeah, I think the thing is that I relate this to, like, you know, some old video game from 10 years ago where, you know, every time you face the boss, you know that if you go to the bottom left of the screen, he can't hit you no matter what you do. And so you're abusing the game. You're trying to beat the game by using those little quirks against it. And I feel like that's what the Brewers are trying. They're trying to beat the game of baseball. They're not trying to play the game of baseball. They're trying to beat the game of baseball by these little quirky things. And sometimes it works out. Sometimes it doesn't work out. Now it's worked out more than it hasn't because Counsell tends to be pretty good at that. But still, you're the more that after you sign Yelich that huge contract, and you got these big contract guys, you know, that small margin of error that you have just continues to grow, right? Like or does it shrink? Whatever it is. Point is, it's harder to continue to beat the game the way that they're doing. And I understand the point you're making, Wiggum, that they can't go out and get the best players. But I would argue that they're getting shitty players. Like, they're not even getting an okay player. They're getting garbage players because of the way that they're trying to play this game. Now, they've decided that that's the only way that they can try to be successful, and that's fine. I understand that. I 100% disagree with it, but I understand it. I also think that it's not necessarily going to work. Now, it's fair to say, throwing out last year, because last year doesn't really account for anything, even though they still made the playoffs being dog shit. The 2 years before that, they were actually pretty successful, or the couple of years before that. They've seen success. So I think we have to give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, but I am bullish. That's the right term, right? I just, I don't know. I'm not feeling it. I hope I'm wrong. And I'll be the first one to say, hell yeah, they're doing it. I just, I don't know. I'm not feeling it.
Well, I mean, we'll see, right? It's been an interesting week. There's been some ups. There's been some downs. There's been some really good pitching. There's been some concern. Some folks are concerned a little bit about Devin Williams. He's given up.
Yes, I was just going to mention that. Dude's fucking throwing batting practice out there.
I mean, he's given up some runs early. Obviously, Corbin has looked good.
Woodruff's looked good too. I mean, the two guys in the top of the lineup or the top of the rotation have been phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, obviously,
and the bullpen shits on him.
Well, and like JP Fireisen, you know, the fire emoji, he's been up and down a little bit.
Well, they're going to get that, right? And again, that's because they're dealing with subpar players. These aren't guys who are all-star players. They're not guys you just stick in the lineup and you let them play 160 games. These are guys where they're going to be successful maybe 30% of the time if you're lucky, and Counsell has to pick that 30% of the time to put them in, and not that 70% of the time when they're garbage. And it just so happens that the guy is generally pretty lucky or good, whichever way you want to say, at finding that 30% time and sticking them in at that point, so that they're successful. But the problem is there's a big there's a big black area there that isn't so good. And if he picks wrong, then, the team's garbage.
I'm going to wrap this up by making a reference to out of the park baseball. So basically the Brewers have entered a Diamond League tournament, and they're playing like Christian Yelich as a diamond card and then like a bunch of bronze and iron cards.
Yeah.
That's basically what you're saying. Am I right?
And you know what? Those bronze and iron cards every now and then will lead you to victory, but are they going to lead you to, 90 wins and winning the division? Probably not, but we'll see. We got a lot of games to play. We're only 7 games in, man. We got
I'm just glad it's back, right? I'm happy to
true.
have Bob Uecker back in my ear holes.
And we can go to games now and catch COVID, or we can go to the game and tailgate and catch COVID, and then we can go into the park and give COVID to other people. I mean, it's a COVID party, but you know what? Baseball's here, so we got that. I'm spinning the wheel. Moving on.
Fair.
We should have been more positive about the Brewers, but I couldn't really do it. Let's be positive about Joe Biden and his machine guns, or whatever this is all about.
All right. So President Joe Biden announced a half dozen executive actions to combat what he called an epidemic and international embarrassment of gun violence in America. Biden's new steps include a move to crack down on what are called ghost guns, homemade firearms that lack serial numbers and are often purchased without a background check. He's also moving to tighten regulations on pistol stabilizing braces like the one used in a shooting earlier this year. In his speech, Biden mentioned a long list of priorities that he'd like to see Congress tackle, which includes passing the Violence Against Women Act, eliminating lawsuit exemptions for gun manufacturers, and banning assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. He called on the Senate to take up the House-passed measures to close the background check loophole. So, number one, I think we can throw out anything that's in the House or the Senate because these people are too busy making excuses for Matt Gaetz to actually do any real work. But let's talk about what Joe Biden has to say. Do you have thoughts on this, Christopher?
Yeah, I guess kind of. I think that first of all, what was the quote that he said? An international embarrassment or some shit?
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly. An epidemic and an international embarrassment is 100% accurate. Like this is the fact that we have this problem is fucking garbage to the nth degree. Like this just infuriates me. This is so fucking stupid. And then we got fucking Lorena Bobbitt or whatever the fuck her name is from Colorado out there talking about running her fucking mouth. Like the fact that this is an issue disgusts me, right? I did that on purpose. I know that's not her name.
I'm trying to think of her name now though, because
it's Lauren Boebert, I believe.
Yeah, because there's like a subset of people on Twitter who thinks she's hot, and that's all weird.
She is very hot, which makes me very conflicted. But that's beside the point. No, I agree with what Gamer's saying. Right, this feels more like it's symbolic, but maybe it's not symbolic so much as it's a very small baby step towards trying to make some legitimate movement. Like this doesn't do much of anything. Right. This is just not even a baby step. Right. It's like nudging forward a little bit. But considering how active and loud and resistive the, pro-gun movement is and pro-gun legislation and legislators, this is at least something. At least it's kind of pushing against that barrier a little bit. And hopefully what this is intended to be is, hey, heads up, we're going to start making some real traction on this problem. And it isn't, hey, you know what? I'm going to do this little tiny bit that doesn't really impact anything, and then people will shut up about it. Because that's not going to happen. And if that's the plan, then shame on him and everyone involved with it, because this is a disgusting approach for something that is legitimately a serious problem and an international embarrassment, as he said. I'm hopeful that this is just the first step of moving in that direction.
Yeah, it's kind of, you got to start somewhere, and kind of trying to start somewhere that's, these things are, like with the, make your own gun kit or whatever. It's like, it's a easy quote unquote step to start with, to say, hey, like this is something, like we're not taking your AR-15 away, or we're not doing this. Like you can't make your own gun that we can't track, basically. which somebody will say, well, I can make my own gun anyway. But like the whole thing about this is people will say, well, this isn't going to prevent any shootings and you need to work on people's hearts and things like that. And I was like, you realize that we're in a country for over 200 or however many years that we've been a country, we have been dealing with people who have bad and negative hearts, right?
Yeah.
This is why we're in the place that we're in. Because if we could trust each person to our left and our right and in front of us and behind us to do the right thing for the person next to them, we wouldn't need to do things like this. We wouldn't be compelled to take any of these actions. But because time and time and time again, there are people who take advantage of others, we need to try to take any small step that we can to put a little bitty, this is probably like a foot off the ground barrier. You could easily step over this barrier, but for one person, that might stop them, right? Like that's really what we're getting at here.
Yeah, I think in gamer, you kind of have a point, right? This is a cultural problem more than anything. I would tend to agree, but I also think that there's no reason anybody needs these weapons. Zero reason. Like you don't take an AR-15 out to go fucking squirrel hunting. You don't need it. And B, it's a hell of a lot easier to restrict those than it is to try to change the hearts and minds of everybody in the country, right? I mean, everybody points to Australia as a prime example, right? They had a bunch of big shootings. They blocked, restricted guns severely, and they haven't had a mass shooting since, or something along those lines, right? So it's been proven that you can do that. Now, are they going to be able to take every gun off the street? Of course not. But we're not even trying. In fact, we're doing the opposite. We're making it even easier for people to get guns, for God's sake. So
yeah, we're making the argument of, well, it's always going to happen, so why are we trying?
It's
right?
it's so asinine. And then the fact that we're fighting with, well, instead of taking guns off the street, we just need to give guns to more people, because then they're going to, no. Like, I can understand that people feel a certain way about their weapons, right? There was an argument on Facebook, which is always a great place to go for intelligent conversation, by the way, where somebody was having a conversation about this, and a friend of mine commented, which is how I saw the comment, basically commented about the Second Amendment and what it means and what it meant and clarifications and all of this, and the guy basically says, well, I'm gonna keep my guns, you can't take them away from me, and that's what it is. It's all about, and then he said something about they put that in the Constitution because you got to be able to fight against a corrupt government. Motherfucker, they're going to roll a tank up to your fucking farmhouse. You're going to shoot your little shotgun at them? I mean, they've got nuclear fucking weapons, for fuck's sake. Like, you really think that your little pea shooter is going to... Like, you're not fighting the government, okay? You're not fighting the government. That's not what this is. It's because you got a small dick and it makes you feel like a real man. That's what the fuck it is, okay?
So did we just find our clip for the week? But also, so...
It just irritates me. And here, I'll be completely honest. I am a gun owner. I hate it. It's hidden. It's locked away. I never want to look at it. I never want to see it. I never want to hold it. But I got it for my own protection. But you know what? If someone came to my door tomorrow and said, hey, all these guns are illegal, you have to give it away, I would run. Okay, I don't really run. To grab it and give it away to somebody, right? Because if I don't need it, I don't want it, right? And I think that's the problem, is we've got so many people that this is they've wrapped their identity around this so strongly that it's always going to be a fight, metaphorically, to the death, because these people are just, that's their identity. That's where they're at.
Right. So, and just to wrap on this, so Historical Gamer made a comment, people will always murder. There's a limit to what you can do. I think that's fair. What I was saying before wasn't necessarily targeted towards that comment, but I've seen a lot of comments on Twitter, because like you read the Facebook comments, I read the Twitter comments, and there's been a lot of that on Twitter, like, well, like, no matter what, people are going to shoot other people. So just don't do anything, because then you're going to take my gun away. And if you take my gun away, I can't protect myself. And It's just like, again, like that's where I think that this is a small step, because if somebody's really going to complain that they can't get a kit where they can assemble their own gun, really? Okay, well, that again, that's a first world problem. That's a privilege problem, right? Like, I'm sorry, but that's how I look at it.
Yeah. I think in the end, I to Gamer's earlier point, this is a cultural problem. And culturally it's something that needs to happen. We need to do something with. The problem is there is so much hate in this country about everything that how are you ever going to be able to get people to agree on anything, right? Because a lot of people, and I'm not saying there's a cross section here, there might be a cross section here, but there's a lot of people that just hate, period. And I think that hate eats them up in so many different ways. Not that I'm saying that gun owners hate everybody and they want a gun because they're going to go out and kill people. But I think that the fact that people as a whole have so much hate, it automatically makes them see negativity in everything around them. And I think that just lends more people to the point of, well, I need a gun to protect myself because there's all these horrible things going on and horrible people out there. And I don't think that's accurate. And I mean, how many of these people that need a gun to protect themselves have ever actually needed a gun to protect themselves? Probably a very, very small percentage. So I don't know.
Well, all right. How are we doing on time here? Do we have time for another topic?
Let's see what our topics. What are the topics we've got here? Can't hardly read the wheel.
I can find this.
We got P. Diddy and COVID deaths. I don't know if there's either of those that you're very passionate about. I'm super passionate about either of them.
I'm interested in the COVID deaths one because I think that's going to unearth some of these other social and kind of, I don't want to say political, but I'm sure people will think that it's being political.
All right,
that one does unearth some of the more like social and political.
Let's do it. We'll wrap on that one, pieces. And then we'll do our random rankings.
All right, so the patrons get some P. Diddy. So, a study of sex disparities in COVID deaths released in the Journal of Internal Medicine found that Black women in the United States are dying at higher rates than any other group than Black men. The researchers examined census data and publicly available COVID mortality rate data through September 21st of 2020 from the states of Michigan and Georgia, which were the only two states to report age, race, and sex information without aggregating the data. So what researchers found is that the disparity between Black women and white women is larger than between white men and white women. In addition, they found that the disparity in death between Black men and women is larger than between white men and white women. So while many researchers focused on differences in biology to explain the differing mortality rates across gender lines, this study challenged that focus. The researchers claimed that their results show differences across race and gender cannot be fully explained by genetic differences. There are social factors that are involved, and racial differences are interpreted as a marker of historical and ongoing oppression of communities and individuals. So the reason that I'm interested in this and the reason that I found this so fascinating is it wraps up a lot of the different stuff that we've talked about ever since we started talking about COVID on this podcast, right? Because there's a lot of people who are pushing a narrative that, oh, there's this very small percentage that you could die from COVID. There's this very small percentage that it's going to impact you. You need to go out and live your life. You need to go out and do what you can do. You need to be, living your my rights. But think about this for a minute. Who and what has been pushing that agenda? It's the people who, based on this study, are at the lowest risk of dying. And why, might you ask? And this is one of the things that the study addressed. Does it seem like, African American women and African American men are at more higher risk? Well, if you think about different essential workers, so folks who are working in nursing homes, who are working in retail, who are working in front end operations, a lot of these positions have a high minority population where these people are being more exposed to COVID. They have more touch points where they may have been in a position to get and ultimately succumb to the symptoms of COVID. So these are the things that we've talked about in passing and in kind of like, well, this is what we think, but we don't have any data to back it up. Here's some data. What are your thoughts, Christopher?
I kind of hate this study.
Okay.
I mean, it's not the study that I hate. I hate the way that they're, what is the word I'm looking for? I hate how they're displaying this study. I hate the narrative that they're trying to sell here.
Okay.
Because I think that this is more a racial disparity than it is a sex disparity. And I know there's a sex disparity there too, but the fact that if you don't dance around all the different verbiage that they're using, in the end, they're saying that black people are dying more than anybody else. That's essentially what they're saying. And I know they're trying to break it down by the percentages between men and women, et cetera, but I think the bigger story isn't men or women. I think it's black and everybody else. And I think that's the big story. And we've had a conversation on that before too, right? Because there's a higher percentage of black individuals who are living in historically poor areas, right? They're not as well represented with hospitals and doctors and that type of thing. They have historically gotten poorer care than white individuals have. And so it would make sense, as much as it's disgusting and makes me more sick to my stomach than the barbecue I had tonight, is that of course these individuals are dying more because they are living in areas where they're underrepresented by hospitals. They're probably not getting the care that they actually need. Who knows financially? I'm not going to try to make a financial comparison between black and white, but that could play a factor in some of these areas as well, where maybe I can't afford to go to the doctor, right? Maybe the doctor is just going to write it off, say, hey, you got a cold. Maybe the doctor is going to say, hey, because you're a black individual, you don't have any money. So instead of running, like when I had COVID, they ran a shit ton of tests. Now, maybe they look at a black individual and say, you know what? I'm not sure that you can afford all those tests. So I'm just going to say it's a cold and send you home. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a lot of different layers to this that I think are tying into why black individuals are dying at a higher rate than any other individual. And it's pretty fucking gross, if you ask me.
Yeah, well, and I think the reason that they called out the, women versus men part of it is there's a lot of like, well, technically men are the most at risk and like people that are older and like trying to really bring this back and say, okay, here's what the data is saying, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. And Gamer says this is also about class more than race. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely, right? It's because again, it goes back to those same points that I made, right? Where based on, your ability to get to a hospital, like get to a place where you can get seen, get the actual care that you need when you're there, et cetera, right? So there's a lot of pieces to this that I think play into it. And, all of this, we're speaking really in generalities because obviously not all black people are poor and all white people aren't and all of that. But I think that because we talked about that, and I want to say it was in Chicago, but I'm not positive if it was Chicago. I think it was when we talked about this. I think it was like 6 months ago or something. But the same kind of thing that we're finding there is, the predominantly black areas of town were hit much, much harder with COVID, and we're seeing much more in the way of deaths. And a part of this also, and again, this is more class related than it is race related, but where are these people working? What are they like? We just talked about the fact that I'm working from home right now. Like I don't have to see anybody. So there's much less of a chance that I'm getting sick. Well, that's not to say that black people aren't also working from home. Of course they are. And again, this is a class thing, not a race thing, but based on your class, like if you are not in the middle, upper, whatever class, like not trying to be derogatory, but these are the individuals who are working at the movie theater that people need open so they can go see fucking King Kong for fuck's sake. Or they're working at the gas station, or they're working at the hospital as a nurse, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, so I just thought it was interesting because it really kind of wrapped up or like brought back to light a lot of the things that we had previously discussed. And it's unfortunate, but I guess I'm a nerd for studies. So you'll see that bend as we continue to do these.
Well, I think the worst part of the whole thing, okay, not the worst. The worst is that people are getting treated improperly and unfairly. But are we going to see any of this change? Like these are things that we've known have been out there for a while. And this is just kind of putting a flashing red light on it. I mean, we had the Evanston story. What was that, last week or the week before? So there's some small changes being made in some of these things, but Will this change? I don't know. I think that this is your hopeful nugget from skonzii this week. We have seen a lot of stuff over the course of the last year or so that we've gone through COVID that are really shining a light on a lot of areas that need change, right? I mean, George Floyd, which didn't really have anything to do with COVID, but that happened over that last year, right? Just shines a huge light on racial disparity and police violence and that type of thing. You work from home. We just had that conversation. We're talking about inadequate care for Black individuals. There's a lot of these things that have really bubbled to the top over the course of the last year. And it'll be very, very interesting to see if we actually learn a lesson and make changes, or if we just roll back and do things the way that it was before all of this hit. Unfortunately, the pessimist part of me says we'll probably just be the same as we always were, but hopefully I'm wrong again. What do we say?
Well, we'll see. And Historical Gamer asked if I'm interested in studies on Orlando Arcia. If someone were to give me the actual data and like show me like how it's pulled and like go through it, I would be interested in that. What I'm not interested in is all the people who just go, he sucks, without giving me the data.
All right, well, he
and
sucks.
Again, that's not you. That's like 17 other people on Twitter. I spend way too much time. Well, I used to spend way too much time on Twitter. Now I don't go on Twitter because all I do is play out of the park baseball. But we're not going to talk about out of the park baseball right now.
No, we're done with that.
It's time.
Are you sure it's time?
I mean, are we doing the other topic or is it time?
No, it's time right now for everyone's favorite segment.
Random Rankins. All right. So, as you all know, we have been working through this Snaklet bracket, and today we will finish it. And hopefully, one of these 4 items will not end up like Gonzaga, but one of them is going to have to end up like Gonzaga because there's only one winner tonight. So,
that's true.
To remind us, in the dip region, hummus and pita bread is the final 4 entrant. In the dish region, ice cream and brownie is the final 4 entrant. In the handful region, cheddar popcorn and caramel popcorn is the final 4 entrant. And in the spread region, fresh bread and butter is the final 4 entrant. So now we have our matchups. We have the ice cream and the brownie versus cheddar popcorn and caramel popcorn. We have hummus and pita bread versus fresh bread and butter. Now, to remind you all of the rules, if skonzii and I agree, that item moves on. If skonzii and I disagree, the chat gets to help us figure out who moves on.
All right, I think we need to give a solid description of what our interpretation is of each of these, so that we understand where we're coming from. Now, I know we both have the exact same interpretation of the Chicago, the caramel and cheese popcorn, but why don't we start there? And I'll let you go ahead and you describe what it is. So here's the thing, Chad, is I think we all have our own ideas, right? Like ice cream and brownie. Maybe Historical Gamer is looking at that and he's saying, "Oh my God, give me that little Debbie brownie and some frozen custard on top," right? Like that's not what I think about when I think brownie and ice cream. So we're gonna give you a little bit of our own take on what we're thinking on this. So B, why don't you start with the popcorn?
All right, I can start with the popcorn because you have to think about this popcorn. So now you're talking about gourmet popcorn. So it's coming in a bag. You open the bag, you put it in a bowl. You got your caramel, you got your cheddar. You took your hand in there, you feel it. It feels kind of buttery. It's not butter, but you get that little, the caramel, and you get the cheddar, and you're eating it. And you're eating it, and once you're done, you look at your hand, and you just got, it looks like you just ate some Cheetos, but except it's not Cheeto, it's actual like that good flavor. And when you eat this popcorn, it has that nice little crunch, but it also brings you that sweet and that cheese, and it's just right. It's not too hard, it's not stale, it's just right.
There you go. So the best way that I can describe this is, imagine you make 2 bowls of popcorn. In one of them, you pour a whole bunch of liquid cheese so that there's like cheese on the bottom. It's just like, if you pick some up, it's just dripping. And then you pour the caramel over the other one. you mix it together and you take it out, and that's pretty much what it is. Like it's practically wet. It's insane. In fact, I'm gonna throw you under the bus a little bit here, B. This motherfucker used to eat this shit with a glove on because it was so messy with all the stuff. It is impeccable. It's so good. So that's the popcorn. I noticed that Emily immediately jumped on her vote as for the popcorn before we even talked about the brownie. So what is in your mind? What is ice cream brownie? What does that mean to you, B? If you were making that, however you wanted, what would that be?
So see, ice cream brownie wasn't something that was always in my repertoire, but we went through a phase in our house. I think this was pre-pandemic, but all time is relative at this point, right? Where my wife wanted ice cream and brownies. So what we would do is she would make brownies from scratch. She would put them in the oven, cook them up. And then what we would do is the first time we take the warm brownies, let them cool off a little bit. You cut your brownie so you still got your nice warm brownie. And then you got your ice cream, and you put your ice cream on top, and you kind of squish it down, and you mix it all together. And then you got that warm brownie that's nice and soft. You got that ice cream that's starting to melt in just a little bit, but it's still a little, formed. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like that's pretty
Delicious.
much how I would do it, right? It has to be a fresh brownie. Like ideally you want it to still be warm. And you don't want that crust piece. You want the piece from right in the middle of the pan. And yeah,
see, I'm okay with the crust piece.
Not with the ice cream, man. You need that stuff. You need a big old piece right in the middle of the bowl, and it's got to be a big bowl. And then it's got to be vanilla ice cream. Got to be vanilla ice cream. Put that vanilla ice cream on top. It starts to melt a little bit, so when you try to scoop it, that ice cream's going to try to slide off that brownie, so you got to make sure you don't let it slide off. Yeah. B, where's your vote going? We're just going to jump straight to the vote.
Ooh, this is hard. So do we need some type of parameter? Like, is this...
I think the parameter is you have these two items sitting in front of you. Which one are you grabbing to eat right now?
If it's right now, we go an ice cream and brownie.
That's where I'm at too, man. I didn't think Chicago was going to lose. But I got to go ice cream and brownie, man.
All right. Well, see, and the reason that I think about that is because popcorn it doesn't feel like as much of a treat as like ice cream and brownie does, right?
Yeah.
I think we kind of take the popcorn for granted, where like you could eat popcorn at 2 p.m. You could eat popcorn at 8 o'clock at night. But like when you get that ice cream and that brownie, you just feel like you treating yourself.
Yeah, I think, and I talked about this a bit on stream. I don't think I've talked about it on the podcast, but I'm really doing healthier eating kind of thing right now, right? So like I didn't get to be this size because I ate salad all the time, right? I mean, I ate very unhealthily, and part of that was almost always having a bag of chips, not in the kitchen, not in the pantry, on the fucking couch, right? So when you sit down on the couch, the chips are right there. That way I don't gotta go nowhere. So snacks was always my big thing, right? It still is, right? I love snacks. But when am I ever gonna snack? Like I mean, unless it's when I'm working, I'm like never just sitting around. I'm on the stream or I'm out smoking a cigar, whatever. So snacks really kind of fall outside of where I am right now. Whereas ice cream and brownie, like you said, it's like that treat. Like, hey, I really want to have something. Last night I had fruit with whipped cream on it. That was my dessert. And it's like, okay, I have a few minutes before I do anything. I just finished my dinner. I want a treat. Let me have dessert. And that's ice cream and brownies where it's at, man.
Yep. So has Old Man Wiggum hacked Emily's account, by the way?
Maybe.
That's so Emily says that she's not a huge brownie fan, and that's something I would expect from Wiggum. So
yeah, that's interesting. So, I love my brownies, man. I haven't had a homemade brownie in a long time. All right.
I mean, we've been doing a lot of desserts around here, so I'm all in on that dessert.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. So the other side, I mean, first of all, I'm doing low carb, and all of these have like 9 million carbs. I'm just throwing that out there.
They really do.
All right. So on this side, we've got fresh. That's the key word, fresh bread and butter. And what is it? Hummus and
pita bread.
Pita bread. Okay.
So it's basically, what do you want on your bread? Do you want
well,
hummus,
I think it's
or
different
do you
bread.
want butter?
It's different bread too. I'll let you choose which one we talk about first, B.
So I'm going to let you do bread and butter because as I talked about last week, I'm not really like a super like bread and butter person.
Okay.
So I'm going to let you describe your ideal bread and butter.
Yeah, I think it's pretty simple, right? Like, it's got to be fresh bread, and ideally, this. By when I say fresh bread, I mean you are making bread, and it's going to be a white bread, which is horrible. Extra carbs, I think, in that one. It's got to be a white bread. Small crust. I'm not big on the crust. In fact, I might even cut the crust off. But yeah, just like fresh out of the oven. You cut the damn thing. You need that good bread knife, otherwise you're going to squish it down so it's this thick. So you need a really good bread knife. Cut that puppy off. I mean, ideally, if you could make homemade butter, I think that would be even better than doing store-bought butter. But either way, just real butter, like not margarine or can't believe this is bullshit or whatever that is. Real butter on there. Get that little bit of a melt. Yeah, that's legit stuff right there.
I mean, I think you just came up with the little YouTube graphic with "I can't believe it's not bullshit" or whatever.
That might be the YouTube thumbnail. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Might be the show title, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. So, are you gonna tell us about bread too, or do you want to just tell us about hummus?
We'll just tell you about hummus. So the thing about hummus is I've been told there's a couple different kinds of hummus, right? Like some people serve hummus cold, some people serve it, I guess, room temperature-ish, right? And then the biggest thing about your pita bread is you have to have a good pita bread. Like you want it to be soft, but you also want it to have that little bit of snap, I think, right? Like you don't want it to just be like sagging like it's a loaf of bread, right?
Yep.
Because typically when you do your loaf of bread, like that bread's a little bit more squishy as to where the pita bread, you want it to be a little bit firmer because when you spread, you don't want your bread to go whoop and like kind of lean over. But the biggest thing is with hummus, you also have to choose your mix-in. So I really am a fan of the red pepper hummus. So roasted red pepper, like I like the roasted red pepper. There are also dessert hummus. I don't know.
I don't know what it is.
But you know, my favorite type of hummus is the red pepper hummus. So
Okay.
that's what I would envision.
I think B and I have different experiences with hummus. Because I go out to, well, I used to go out to a lot of Middle Eastern, Mediterranean, I think, whichever it is, right? Restaurants. And because I love that food. You know, it's meat and rice. I mean, what's not to love? Of course, now I can't eat rice anymore, so it's meat, I guess. But they always
That's what
have
happened tonight.
that did happen tonight. But they always come with this amazing hummus. There's actually a place in town here that makes an amazing hummus, and it's so different from the stuff that you buy at the store or the stuff at the brew pub that we used to like to go to. Maybe still will at some point. Maybe.
There's an expanded patio, Christopher.
Yeah, I don't care. Did you notice the picture didn't even show the patio? That's irritated the shit out of me. Expanded patio. Here's a picture of the inside. Anyway, I digress. So when I think of hummus, that's what I'm thinking of is that restaurant, freaking amazing. Like it is just so good, so creamy. That's the hummus I'm thinking of. That's the hummus that could actually compete with bread. If I was comparing it to the hummus in the store or over at the brew pub, which isn't bad hummus, it's not the same level, right? It's like getting a steak at Outback and then going to like some Gordon Ramsay steakhouse, right? They're both steak, but they're different levels of steak. So if we're talking the brew pub hummus, I might be going towards the bread.
No, I think we're talking your hummus.
If I'm talking my hummus, then that's what gets my vote.
Yeah, I think that gets my vote too.
Yeah. So
now we've got in the finals, ice cream and brownie versus hummus and pita bread.
I'm just going to say this, chap. And I'm not going to make the decision for both of us, but there was some conversation going on with the brownie, the ice cream, and the popcorn. There was some hemming and hawing. There were some questions going on. The hummus and the bread side was a landslide. It wasn't even close. I'm afraid that for me, this final is very similar to the hummus and bread competition. There just ain't no competition here in my book. It's ice cream all the way for me. What do you got, B? Are we going to decide it ourselves, or is this going to go to the chat?
Well, I think I got to go to my video review booth. I got to put on the. No, I don't have to put nothing on because it's ice cream and it's the
Oh,
brownie and it's done.
ice cream and brownie win. I think that's the correct answer.
It is.
I got to make this
So,
super huge. Ice cream brownie. I won't get it.
yeah. So I think the reason that wins, and the funny part is that one got stronger as the rounds went on, because as you look at this bracket, like of all of these things, ice cream and brownie really feels like the biggest treat here. And I think that's when we're looking at this, like when you want that treat, that ice cream and brownie feels like a treat, where hummus,
Yeah.
like it's fine, but I don't think that I would ever be like, you know what I'm gonna go do? Treat myself to hummus.
And
Right?
I think the key word there is treat, right? Like we're looking at these as like these are completely different types of food. And
Yep.
ice cream, it's really a treat. If you like, you don't eat ice cream every day, right? Not that you eat hummus every day, but that's more a common thing, right? It could be something you ate every day, really, if you wanted to.
Right.
Whereas ice cream is specifically a treat. It's not part of a meal. It's something specifically. If you want to treat yourself, that's what I go for. I don't look at hummus as a treat. Now I might say, hey, I really want hummus, so I think I'm going to go get that. That's still not a treat. It's just, dude, I need to eat dinner and I want to eat hummus tonight, you know? So
Yep.
I think that's what gave ice cream a little bit of an edge, at least in my book.
Yeah, and Wiggum said his ratings are ice cream, Chicago corn, hummus, and bread. And I think hummus and Chicago are close for me, but I think
Yeah.
that's where I would land more or less. Too.
I think I probably flipped the hummus in the Chicago. In part
Yeah,
because, you know, I'm virtually carb free and I don't want the pita bread though. If this would have been hummus with non bread, done in a heartbeat. Not only would it have destroyed bread, it would have competed against ice cream for me. Non bread makes a huge difference in my book.
What if you had to eat it with like carrots and celery?
No, what the fuck?
I mean, you're looking for no carbs, so
Well, that's true. Maybe I'll try that sometime. I don't know how many carbs are in hummus. We'll have to figure that out.
It's actually not bad. I mean, you know, again, that's where the dessert hummus
Carbs and hummus. Oh, that's
come
not
in.
bad. Well, that's a tablespoon. What a cup. Oh, shit. I'm not eating hummus. Sorry. Hummus is out. All right.
How many carbs does hummus have?
I don't know. It was like
Christopher?
35 in a cup of hummus.
Oof. So
Yeah, it's
like
bad.
basically that entire quesalupa or whatever.
Yeah, that's like my day's worth of carbs, pretty much. I shouldn't say that
Alright.
out loud because someone will yell at me for not eating enough carbs. Anyway, enough about carbs and my freaking diet. Emily says fresh bread, Chicago ice cream hummus. Wow, fresh bread. Okay, I can see that. Especially with homemade butter. Dude, I need to make homemade butter. Anyway, I keep digressing, or I need to digress. I don't know exactly how digress works, but we're going to move on to Brian's extra point because I think it's time for that. And let me just choose that. Where is the Brian extra? Oh, it's over here. There it is. Brian's on the big screen. What do you got, B?
I am on the big screen, and I just want to tell everybody thank you for supporting us. This was a good time this week doing our random rankings. I had fun with the topics, and one of the things that's interesting to me this week is I had my vaccine anniversary, I guess you'd call it, right? Like I made my 14th day after my second dose of the vaccine, and that's awesome. I'm still taking my precautions. I'm still doing all of the things that I need to do, but it's definitely a step towards normalcy. And I'm very happy for that, you know, and there's a lot going on in our world. Like there were two very prominent people who died today from like two very different parts of the world, right? Like you have DMX from the world of hip hop, and then you have one of the royal family members dying, right? And like people are all talking in a buzz about all of these things. And it just makes you thankful for the things that you have and the time that you have and the things that you're doing, right? At least that's what it makes me think of. I, as a kid, listened to, well, not as a kid, right? Like I'm not that old. I'm not, you know, old man Wiggum out here, but, you know, I listened to DMX a lot when I was in like high school and college, right? And one of the things that I always remember is one of the songs started with kind of that lyric that talked about, you know, to live is to suffer, to survive is, or to see, now I done messed it up, but it's basically like to live is to suffer, to survive is to learn something from the suffering, right? And that was something that like, you know, 18-year-old me thought was like mind-blowingly insightful. But it's something that I even think about to this day, because you never know what from anyone will like stick in your brain or motivate you or make you think. So, thanks to you guys, because you all have made memories for me, and I hope that in some way we're able to make memories for you too. So thanks for everything that you guys do.
It's a good message, B. Old Man Wiggum is wondering who DMX is. I thought it was the bike that people used to ride back when I was a kid, but I think that was something different.
That was Debo stealing a BMX.
Oh, BMX. That's what it is. Okay. You know what? I've racked my brain and I don't have an extra point. I'm trying to think what's important in life right now. Maybe that's what we need to think about. Because I think that the message that that I'm pulling from what you just said is, we got to keep in mind, and we're just talking about my health because I've had some health scares of late, and we never know when people are going to be here and when they're not going to be here. And if there's one thing this pandemic has really taught me, it's how much I value the people in my life and how much I value the ability to see the people in my life, the ability to give people in my life a hug or to shake a hand, which I've always enjoyed, but that's probably going away now. Those things are super important. And so I guess my very, very short extra point, instead of super long like I normally do, is just to take a moment and think about the people in your life that you care about and make sure you let them know. I know that's very cliche and people talk about that all the time. Make sure you tell people that you love them. Make sure you tell your family you love them. Make sure you call your mom, whatever the case may be. That's super cliche, but it's true. And I guess that's what's kind of top of mind right now, is the importance of making sure that the people that you love and that you care for know that you love and that you care for them. And maybe just use this weekend as an opportunity to reach out and, tell somebody that you love them, or reach out to that person you haven't spoken to in a while, or reach out to mom and dad if you haven't talked to them. Just take that opportunity, because for all we know, they might not be here tomorrow. So go do that. That's what I got, B.
Sounds good. Well, now that we've given you all that we've got, we'll let you know where you can find us and how you can continue to be part of the brand, so to speak. So you can find me on Twitter at LandmarkMKE. You can find Skonzii at Skonzii. You can find Skonzii on Patreon. You can find our content at Almost Qualified Productions on Facebook, AQ_PROD on Twitter. And of course, once you get Amazon Sidewalk, you can find Christopher and deliver so many things that he can eat as long as they don't have carbs.
No, I'm not going to be on Amazon Sidewalk. In fact, all of my echoes are unplugged right now.
We did it. We need to play like the celebration horn.
Where's it at?
Anyway, everybody, you guys have a great week. Thank you for supporting. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of our time and lives. And Christopher, if you don't have anything else to say to the people, I will bid you all adieu and see you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.